So this is part two of the presentation on the revolutions of 1830 and 1848. So we're going to be talking about France again during this presentation. When we last left off, the French had revolted in 1830 and forced the King Charles X to abdicate and flee the country. But they ended up, instead of having a republic, having a constitutional monarchy. And their king, if you remember, was a guy named Louis Philippe. So in the 1840s, discontent grew in France again. Under Louis Philippe, only about 1% of the French people had the right to vote. This is a picture of Louis Philippe. Remember, he was called the Citizen King because he dressed in a style more similar to the middle class as opposed to in the style of a king. So only 1% of people had the right to vote, and then a recession caused many people to lose their jobs, and a poor harvest caused bread prices to rise. So what happens next is people start to get upset, start to criticize the government. So in response, in February, Louis Philippe took steps to prevent public meetings. He banned people from congregating in public areas. People obviously didn't take this very well. Angry crowds started appearing throughout Paris, blockading streets and clashing with royal troops. And this picture just sort of shows an example of something like that. They would build blockades out of all kinds of items, blocking off roads and fighting with the soldiers who tried to stop them from doing so. So turmoil spread throughout Paris, eventually leading Louis Philippe to abdicate, which is again to leave his to give up his power. He gave up his throne and he fled to England. And what happens next is a group of liberal, radical, and socialist leaders proclaim the Second Republic. The First Republic had existed after the French Revolution for a few years before Napoleon had taken power. So the Second Republic grants universal male suffrage, which means all men have the right to vote, not just property owners. But from the start, there were deep divides in the government. Middle-class liberals wanted moderate reforms, but more radical people and socialists wanted far-reaching changes, such as the creation of national workshops to provide jobs for the unemployed. So they were really speaking for the working class people. So in June of 1848, we start to see things changing again. The new French government was quickly taken over by conservatives. They shut down those national workshops that the socialists had wanted. And that, of course, angers the working class who had wanted to, were hoping for more jobs. So 170,000 workers and other people came out into the streets. They built barricades and they again started to do battle with the soldiers. But this time, they didn't get support from liberals or from peasants. They both turned on these workers and they turned on them violently. So at least 1,500 people were killed as the government crushed the rebellion. So June days, the workers were crushed. So this leads to a great deal of division in France. There were deep divisions between the social classes. And by the end of 1848, the National Assembly, which had now been dominated by members who wanted to maintain order, issued a new conservative constitution for the Second Republic. It created a strong president and a one-house legislature. And they held an election, and Louis Napoleon, the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, ended up actually winning the election. Once he was elected, Louis Napoleon quickly began returning France to the old order. This is a picture of him. In December 1851, he seized power, and by 1852 he had proclaimed himself the emperor of a new Second French Empire, the first one being his uncle Napoleon Bonaparte's empire. So this brought an end to that short-lived Second Republic. So as you can see, France has a second rebellion, and yet again, they're unable to create this republic or this freer society that so many people seem to want. The divisions between the different classes, again, prove to be too much.